Welcome to Daryl's Beekeeping Videos. I'm a master beekeeper, and this video is about becoming a master beekeeper. There are many ways to become a master beekeeper. This video will focus on how to become a master beekeeper in the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association. This video is not associated with the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association. This is just my take on how I became a master beekeeper within the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association. As I stated earlier, there are many ways to become a master beekeeper. There are different master beekeeping programs in each state. There are also ways to become it, such as joining the Eastern Apiculture Society, or EAS, and become a master beekeeper through their program. I chose to go through the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association's master beekeeping program because I'm a resident of North Carolina. And so if you choose to go through the master beekeeping program, one of the first things you have to ask yourself is why you want to become a master beekeeper. Because becoming a master beekeeper doesn't make you an all-knowing, all-seeing beekeeper. If you ever run into somebody like that says, I know everything about beekeeping, run from that person. They're a moron. I can tell you that all master beekeepers, all master craftsman beekeepers, which is the highest level, will make mistakes. You are going to make mistakes at your level. The difference is, as you go through the master beekeeping program, what it does is a self-study guided program that guides you through the process to become a master beekeeper or a master craftsman beekeeper. And what it does, it teaches you what's science-based information and what's just information that's based on opinion. And that's the biggest difference between just not going through the program and going through the program. It will help you understand the science and technology behind beekeeping, as well as working out through the various art of beekeeping, which is applying the different management techniques. So I was in your shoes many years ago, where I was going, why would I go through the master beekeeping program? Because it really doesn't do you anything. I can take that certificate, the medallion, and the nameplate, master beekeeping nameplate that I get for going through the program, and take that and $10 and get a cup of coffee most anywhere, mostly because of the $10. But what it does do for you, as I stated, it helps you sort through the chaff of what's science-based and what is simply opinion-based. And then from there, you can make an informed decision on how you want to apply the various beekeeping management practices in your apiary and in your beekeeping journey. I am a very big fan of the master beekeeping program because it does guide you through a self-learning process. So with that being said, this video will walk you through a roadmap on how to become a master craftsman beekeeper should you choose to go that far. So the very first thing I always tell people that ask me about the master beekeeping program is first thing you want to do is you want to go to, in this case, the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association's website, and then you go to the master beekeeping program, and then you download all the information about the various levels of the master beekeeping program to see what the requirements are for each level. In the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association's master beekeeping program, there are 4 levels. They are certified level, next up is journeyman level, and then master beekeeper, and then master craftsman is the highest level that you can obtain in the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association's master beekeeping program. Again, you will have to go through and see what the various requirements are for studying the various levels, and they will also have some study guides that talk about the topics that you're going to want to study for each level, but it won't actually give you individual questions or things like that. They do have a quizzes and games section that I'm going to talk about briefly in a little bit, that I highly encourage you to take every month whenever they come out and use that for a study platform. So again, as you go through, you're going to see it when you do it, as I talk about the various levels. And again, I'll have a photo of this in the final product to show you all my notes here. So again, in the North Carolina State Beekeeper Association Master Beekeeper Program, there are 4 levels. Like I said, the certified requires you to have 4 months of beekeeping experience before you take the written exam. And then there's also a practical exam. And again, if you go onto the website, it tells you there's a study guide that talks about the various topics. So I recommend that you take that and save that as a Word document, Microsoft Word document, or any other type of Word document, and then go in and research the various topics such as honeybee races, history of the beekeeping, all those various topics, and fill those in, and then use those as a study guide. I did that, and it basically was, if I remember right, it was about 6 pages of just topics, and then from what I did is I went and made my own study guide based off of that, just from what I found on the web. Again, I try to stick to government websites and known factual beekeeping websites as much as I could when I went to fill out my own study guide. And then I used this guide for all 3 levels, certified, journeyman, and master level exams whenever I took them. The other thing it requires, like I said, it requires it's a 50 question test for the certified level. It's mostly true and false or multiple choice questions. It's a very easy test. And then you have to do a practical exam. Again, both these are done at the local level. The certified test is done through your local beekeeping chapter, or if you go to one of the state conferences in the spring or the fall, they will also administer it there. But again, the certified test is maintained at the local beekeeping chapter's level, so you can take it through your local chapter. And then for the practical exam, it's simply going out into an apiary with a certified or higher beekeeper to administer the test. And basically it's all that requires is it requires at the certified level, it requires you to don the appropriate equipment, protective equipment, so it's basically putting on a bee suit, putting on your gloves. And then from there you have to light a smoker. And again, I've got a video on how to light a smoker, so if you watch that video, it will help you pass that portion of the test. And then I also have another video called how to inspect a hive or how to inspect a colony. It's an hour-long video, but an actual inspection only takes you about 5-10 minutes to do. Your test is probably going to take you about 20 minutes to do, maybe 30 minutes, depending on how long it takes you to identify the equipment and describe what you're seeing to the tester. So the practical exam, as I just alluded to, is when you go out in the apiary, you have to don the equipment, you have to light a smoker. You're only allowed the smoker to go out one time during your exam, and then you're allowed to relight it during the exam. Again, if you follow my video, that won't happen because I show you how to maintain that smoker and keep it from going out. You can just keep adding fuel and keep going. From there, you're going to identify the various component parts of a hive, and then you're actually going to open up the hive and pull out frames, and you're going to identify the various types of bees. You're going to identify the queen, the worker, the drone, and then you're going to talk about any diseases that you might see, indicators. At the certified level, we're not expecting you to know the disease names or anything like that. We're just looking for the major indicators and food stores and things like that. So again, if you download the certified exam paper off the website, it'll tell you exactly what that test comprises of and what to look for and what's expected of you. And at the certified level, there are no public service requirements. For all the others, from journeyman through master craftsman, you will also have to take and do public service requirements. And again, if you go into the various levels of the master beekeeping program, it will tell you what those requirements are for each level. So at the next level up is the journeyman. The journeyman test requires you to have a minimum of 2 years beekeeping experience. Again, check the Master Beekeeping Program website to make sure you are following the most current guidelines. But this is as current as of this morning when I'm recording this video. It's 3rd of December 2021. So at the journeyman and higher, journeyman, master, and master craftsman, all the tests are controlled at the state beekeepers level. So you'll have to attend one of the conferences where they teach it, or periodically throughout the year they'll offer testing sites throughout the state. And usually pre-COVID, it's usually twice a year throughout the year, but because of COVID, they generally limit it to about once a year now. Once we get through COVID, hopefully they'll start offering more of those testing opportunities for you. So at the journeyman level, like I said, it's required a 2 years beekeeping experience. And then you have to pass a written test. It's a really tough test from the Journeyman and the Master Beekeeper test. It's a really tough test because they want you to actually know the topics rather than just regurgitating questions and answers you might get off their website. So you'll really have to put in the work to get this if you want to become a Master Beekeeper. So the written test, again, it's held at the state level, and it consists of true and false type questions, multiple choice, and it also has fill in the blank, where you actually write your own answer, and then a grader will come back and give you the test results after you leave the exam. They'll call you and tell you how you did and what you missed and what you got right. In addition to the written, you then have to go through a series of practical exams. And practical exams are nothing more than going inside a little room with the tester, and they're going to pull out a 3-ring binder, and there's about 9 different topics that they're going to talk about. And if you go to the website, it'll talk about the various topics that you're going to need, such as other bees, how to grade honey as if it were a competition. Again, altogether there's like 9. Again, I got it somewhere. It's score jar honey, beekeeping equipment identification, such as, again, the easiest way to study for that is go into a beekeeping catalog and look at the various beekeeping tools. Pesticide labels, you're going to be presented with a series of pesticide labels, and then they're going to ask you questions about that in the book, and you'll have to be able to answer them. And then from there, the easiest way to study for that is if you go through your North Carolina Department of Agriculture Consumer Services, if I remember correctly. Again, I'll have the link here in a little bit, and one of the pictures I'm going to post for you. But again, if you take their pesticide applicator program, that will set you up. One, it gives you a specialty requirement that you're going to need anyway for the master or master craftsman level. It will also set you up for success on how to pass that practical exam in the Journeyman or the master test as well. You'll have to know about bees and wasps and other stinging insects. A good resource for that is to look at North Carolina State Beekeeper Association. Also, if you look into South Carolina State Beekeeper Association, when I was studying for mine, they had a really good section on there on other stinging insects as well, and that helped me pass through that portion of the test. Then you'll have to know the honey labeling requirements and guidelines. Then you'll have to know about honeybees, diseases, and pests, and you'll have to identify them by visual as well. When you flip through this binder, it's going to show you pictures of diseases and pests, and you have to be able to identify what that disease or that pest is on that test, on that practical exam. So again, a good source for that is the various books that they recommend in the Master Beekeeping program, such as The Hive and the Honeybee. Also, again, if you have a chance to, if your State Beekeeper Association has a study guide section, again, South Carolina has some of that available. Again, I'm only speaking for South Carolina, because that's where I found it. Also, I found some resources on the Texas State Beekeeper Association's website on stinging insects and diseases. That helped out a lot as well. And then you'll have to identify the various parts of a flower. So again, go into any of the major books, Hive and the Honeybee, and any place else that talks about pollination, and basically identify the female and male portions of a flower to be able to pass that portion of the test, practical exam. And then identification of anatomical structures of an adult honeybee. So this is the anatomy and physiology portion of the practical exam. Again, the Hive and the Honeybee, if you go into the anatomy of the honeybee by R.E. Snodgrass, against what your Master Beekeeping written questions are also based on, that will help you pass that portion of the test. And then the 9th topic that they'll talk about during the practical exams for the Journeyman and the Master exam is the identification of beekeeping products. And what you'll find there, again, when you open up the 3-ring binder and take that practical exam, is you're going to find various products such as bee supplements or feeding items, or various antibiotics or those type things that you might find and be able to order. And then from there, you've got to be able to identify them and tell them, the examiner, what they are used for. For example, bee pollen or fumagillin bee. You'll have a picture of that, and you've got to be able to identify it and tell the examiner what that is and what it's used for. So at the Journeyman level, You're going to be expected to, again, there are, on the practical exam, there are 9 different topics. You will be expected to pass 4 of those for the journeyman level. And then at the journeyman level, so you have the written, you have the practical exam, and then you have public service requirements. Public service requirements are going out and passing on your beekeeping experience and knowledge to the public and help educate the public about the beekeeping, especially in our state. So again, if you go on the North Carolina State Beekeepers Association's Master Beekeeping Program, it'll tell you the various things that they will accept as public service requirements, such as teaching at a bee school and teaching young beekeepers how to do beekeeping is part of service credit. What I did, a tip for you, is I called all my high schools in my area and I reached out to their agricultural department. They normally have some kind of Future Farmer Association, FFA program, and I reached out to their teachers and just wrote to them in an email, found their email on the web search, and then wrote to them and said, hey, I'm going through the Master Beekeeping Program. I need some public service credits. May I teach your kids how to do beekeeping? And then from there, I got 3 high schools responded back, said they'd love me to come teach. And then from there, you start working out with the teacher and find out how many students they have, what the age groups are, whether you're going to teach at an elementary school or a high school or whatever level, and work with the teacher and find out what terminology is appropriate for that level of students. For example, if I was teaching at an elementary school, I wouldn't be talking about bee sex. If I was talking about, although I might tell about male and female, but I wouldn't go into the graphics of reproduction system for bees. But at the high school level, that might be a very appropriate thing. In my local high school, he actually wanted that. They wanted me to talk about honeybee reproduction. So again, work with the teacher. It's an easy service credit to do. If you are in North Carolina, you can go volunteer at the North Carolina State Zoo in the beekeeping exhibit. That will work for service credits. It will also become a specialty if you get enough hours. If you have 50 hours in a 2-year period, 50 hours in a 2-year period, it will serve as a specialty. If you volunteer at the North Carolina State Zoo, the honeybee exhibit, you have to attend their volunteer program training, and that's usually done about February or March, and it's typically only done once a year. So you'll have to work with the zoo volunteer coordinator to find out when that training is, because if you don't attend that training, you're not going to be allowed to go become a volunteer at the zoo. Again, easy way to knock off service credits and to knock off the one of the specialties that you're going to be required for the master. So we talked about certified. Next one was journeyman. The next higher level is the master beekeeper. Currently, as of I think it's 2020 and beyond, you have to have 4 years of beekeeping experience to become a master beekeeper. When I did it, it was only 3 years. They've since changed the rules. It's now 4 years experience. And then you have to take a written exam. You have to take the practical exam like I was talking about earlier. And then in addition to that, at the master and the master craftsman level, then you also have to do a field exam with bees as well. That's a new requirement that I didn't have to go through, but you guys will have to do it once you get to it. And in addition to that, you will have to do an additional 10 hours, or 10 public service credits. Remember, for journeyman, you had to do 5 public service credits. For master, you have to do an additional 10 public service credits. So at the master level, again, it's going to be the same type of questions, similar. It's going to be true or false, multiple choice, fill in the blank. But the majority of the master exam is going to be essay type questions. For example, they might ask you, explain the Demaree method of swarm prevention to a beekeeper that's new, a new beekeeper that doesn't understand the process. Or it may ask you, explain how to, step by step, how to make crystallized or creamed honey. So you have to be able to answer that in an essay form, and you'll write out your essay on how to do it step by step by step, and then the Master Beekeeping Program testers will grade it at their leisure and then get back with you to tell you how you scored. So if you go onto the North Carolina State Beekeepers Associations and you take their monthly quizzes and games and save them to Word document, It will give you a feel for what's a certified level type of question, what's a journeyman, what's a master level types, 3 levels of questions, quizzes, and games that they're going to offer on the program. When you get to the master craftsman level, it's basically all those, except now you're doing it in an oral exam. So that was the written exam. Again, it's mostly essay type questions. The practical exam, again, remember there are 9 different practical exam topics. You're going to be expected to have a total of 8 of those 9 topics done. So remember, you were required to do 4 at the journeyman level. At the master level, you will have to do an additional 4 that do not include those ones that you did for the journeyman. So out of the 9 topics, you will have to have passed 8 to get through the master portion of the master exam. And then finally, like I said, starting a couple years ago, they require a field exam, which you go out with an examiner and you go out and walk him through how to inspect the hive. Again, and read the current requirements, what type of equipment they want you to have. When I was first looking at it, when I was getting ready to do the Master Craftsman program, they required just a suit and nitrile gloves if you had a medical condition. Otherwise, they didn't want you to have any gloves at all. Check the current requirements, see if they've since changed that rule. I think it's a silly rule that when they had it, so hopefully they've changed that. Again, I didn't see it specifically listed on it this time, so maybe they've taken it off. Again, if you get to the Master or Master Craftsman exam, ask them about what the current requirements are. And then lastly, the last highest level is a Master Craftsman level. And the differences there is at the Master Craftsman level, for the backup one, for the Master exam, you also have to have, 6 of the 19 sub-specialties done. And at the Master Craftsman level, you have to have an additional, I wrote it down, I think it's an additional 7 of the 19 specialties to become a Master Craftsman. So again, the Master Craftsman, there is no written exam, but there is an oral exam. In addition to that, you have to do a research project that's beekeeping related, and you'll work with the Master Beekeeping program, and generally refer you to the North Carolina State the North Carolina State University's apiary program or beekeeping program, and from there you can work out your research project with them, all the details on what they expect. And then from there, you submit it to the Master Beekeeping program for final approval of the project. Once you complete your project, you'll submit it to both North Carolina State University's Beekeepers coordinator. In this case, it's Dr. Tarpey, as of when I made this video. And you also coordinate with the Master Beekeeping program about your results of your research project. And then from there, you have to write a paper and submit it to the Bee Buzz magazine for publication. From there, you will be then scheduled for your Master Craftsman oral exam at one of the conferences, either the spring or the fall conference. And then from there, you'll go in, and there'll be any number of people that are typically they're part of the Master Beekeeping Committee. There'll also be people in there that are typically the speakers at the conference, and they'll be asking you questions about your research project and anything related to beekeeping. So you can expect everything from anatomy and physiology to pollination to all those things that you studied for the master and the journeyman level and the certified level. You can expect those type questions, except now you're being presented in an oral format, and you have to be able to answer those questions during the oral exam. Well, I understand it's pretty laid back, pretty easy, but it is pretty in-depth. You have to know your topics. So that's basically the 4 levels of the North Carolina State Beekeeper Association's Master Beekeeping program. So now I'm going to talk to you about some tips on how to do it. I've already alluded to some of those as I was going along. For those of you who are looking for a single source study guide, there is none. I've had several beekeepers over the years want the easy button, say, Give me a one source document that I can study the thing. There is no such thing. The reason for that, after talking to the Master Beekeeping Committee over the years, and I've been working with them for several years now. I'm not part of the committee, but I've worked with them at the various conferences. What they are looking for is a well-rounded beekeeper, a master beekeeper that has a wide knowledge of topics and experiences about beekeeping. That's everything from anatomy and physiology, management, pollination services, equipment, so that if a young beekeeper or a person that doesn't know anything about beekeeping comes up to you and asks you about beekeeping, you'll be able to give them an informed, educated answer to their question. So again, they're not looking for somebody that can just simply take their quizzes and games and recite the information back. They're wanting that too, but they also want you to know the various processes, such as, again, the Demery method, the various, the dice method, all these other different techniques that are part of our management techniques. They're going to expect you to know how to teach somebody how to do that. They're also going to want you to know how to do research. So if you don't know the answer, you're not just regurgitating something that you're just making up. They're expecting you to go, I don't know, and then research it and then be able to tell that person or point them to a good source where they can find that information. So that's what the Master Beekeeping Program is, as I understand it, is they're looking for somebody that's very well-rounded, somebody that understands the various terminology and things like that. At the certified level, we're expecting just very basic stuff, just basically how to manage a colony, get your bees through the season alive, and know a little bit of history of beekeeping, people, equipment, things like that. And then once you start getting into journeyman and higher, we expect you to understand not only the basic stuff you learned during the certified, but we're also expecting you to know the various terminologies, scientific terminologies, such as knowing the various diseases and pests by their common name and their scientific name. And then, again, knowing all the various processes such as pollination, management techniques, et cetera, et cetera. So where do you start and how do you get to where you're going? Because again, if you're looking at it, you go, oh, that's a lot of information to study, but it's really not that hard when you take it in small bites like I did. So the very first thing you want to do, like I said, is you want to download all the information at the various levels and then put them into a 3-ring binder. So when I did it, I created myself a 3-ring binder and I started keeping all the stuff as a checklist. So I downloaded how to become a certified beekeeper, how to become a journeyman beekeeper, how to become a master beekeeper. And I used those as checklists as I went through each level. And as I got the certificates for the various specialties and the various service requirements, I put them into the various tabs in my own book at the different levels, and then used that as a checklist as I went through the program. So again, the certified level, watch my videos. Especially, again, most of my videos so far have been geared toward the new beekeeper because that's who I mostly deal with. Again, I do occasionally run into the higher level beekeepers who are looking how to do queen rearing, things like that. But again, most of my videos so far are geared toward that lower level beekeeper, except for this one, it's going to gear you to how to get through the master beekeeper. So for the certified level, watch my videos. Again, a lot of these videos I have on there will get you through some of those early tests. Again, how to inspect a hive. That will also help your people at the higher levels, the journeymen and the people that are going through the master beekeeping exam, because I talk about in that how to inspect the hive video, I talk about the various things you're looking for and you're going to have to be able to regurgitate during your practical. I talk about how to light a smoker. For the new beekeeper, attend to bee school if you can. Again, you're going to learn a lot of those topics that are part of your test at the various levels. You're going to learn that in a bee school as well. At the certified level, join your local chapter. Go onto your state beekeeper association and look for a chapter, or look up a simple Google search, beekeeping associations near me, and it'll pop up your local chapter. Once you get to your local chapter, ask for a mentor, and then call your mentor periodically and ask him to either come to your apiary or you come to his apiary or her apiary, and then get some practical experience hands-on. I typically take on about 2 mentees or students every year, and I let them come out to my apiary and make any mistakes they might make. Next thing you want to do is you want to start copying and pasting the North Carolina State Beekeeper Association's quizzes and games, and then save them every month and use them as part of your study process for when you get ready to take your Journeyman and your Master, as well as your Certified. But even at the Certified level, you should be copying and pasting all 3 levels, because it will give you a feel for what the various levels are. When I took mine, by the time I got ready to take my Master, I had about 18 months worth of the copy and paste. Excuse me, I'm going to check my battery. Okay. Sorry, I saw a light on my thing. I'm making sure I wasn't cutting off my video. Apologize. All right, so again, download the guides. And like I said, download the study guide. It's going to be about 6 to 10 pages, and then go through and start researching, and then just start filling it in. What you find your answers, and fill it in, and then use it as a study guide for your various levels. I use this for all 3 levels of my tests that I've taken, and it came in handy. And like I said, you take all your quizzes, you save them as Word documents, and you print them out, and you got all those months of quizzes and games with all those questions. Again, I got about 2 binders full, and I periodically go through it. Even though I've already passed my master's exam, I periodically go through and reread these, because it's good to know that type of information. All right, while you are at the certified level, I highly encourage you to start on your Master Beekeeper subspecialties. Nothing says that you have to wait till each level to work on the subspecialties. You do have to wait to take the test at certain times, till after you completed the prior level. You do have to wait till you completed the bottom level to go to the next level for public services. For example, I cannot work on Master public service requirements until I've fully completed my Journeyman requirements and become a Journeyman beekeeper. So do read the rules, but again, start on those subspecialties now. I had all but 2 of my Master Beekeeper subspecialties done while I was still a certified beekeeper, such as if you go through the various lists on the North Carolina State Beekeepers Associations, there are 19 subspecialties. And I will post this as a JPEG for you guys to see it. I'll show you that you can get all 6 of those done without ever having to enter a honey competition. A lot of people enter the first 5 subspecialties are the various ways of processing honey and beeswax. For example, specialty number 1 is liquid honey. Second one is comb honey. Third one is crystallized honey. Fourth is beeswax, different products. Candles is the easiest one. Mead is honey mead, alcohol. Again, but you're going to find out you're only allowed 3 of those specialties of those 5. When I got mine, I didn't enter any of those. But if you do it, it's pretty easy. If you enter the North Carolina State Beekeeper Association's, it requires you to do a state level or higher competition. So the easiest way to get a first or second place ribbon, which is what's required for that specialty in each of those categories. Again, depending on which category you're after, enter your competition into the North Carolina State Beekeeper Association's spring or fall conference, because there's less competition. You can also enter your products into the North Carolina State Fairs competition and possibly get a first or second place ribbon in that category there, but you'll have a lot more competition than you will at the Beekeeper Association, so less competition. So again, I will show you, so my 6 that I ended up getting for my master's was publish an article in a beekeeping publication. So again, if your read requirement says it wants you to obtain that specialty, you have to have an article published in American Bee Journal or Bee Culture or similarly national magazine. It's easy. I've been published about 14 times so far. It's easy. So all you have to do is go onto their website. So if you Google how to submit an article to American Bee Journal or how to submit an article to Bee Culture, so all you have to do is read their submissions. They typically want it double spaced. It's a simple word setting. You go in there and set it and tell it double space. And then they want your contact information on every page. So again, you go in there and you go into insert header, and then you put in your information, your name, your email address, and your phone number on each page as the header, and it automatically publishes it on each page. They will also want you to submit photos separately, and they want your photos under a certain size per photo. For example, it's typically 5 megabytes or less per photo. You submit them separately as separate photos. So I would submit my article, and they're going to tell you in there, submit a concept article first. I never have done that. I've always taken a full article and submitted it in the format they want, double spaced and separate photos, not embedded photos. But I submitted the full photos because remember that editor, he's working, or she is working 2 to 3 articles ahead. And a lot of times they don't have time to read through your proposal. And if it's only just a topic and a few sentences, you're probably not going to get much of a response. But if you submit a full article in the format that they want, you are more likely to get accepted and be published, which will meet that requirement. It's very easy. Like I said, I've been published 14 times in American Bee Journal, Bee Culture, Bee Buzz, and Beekeeping Your First 3 Years no longer exists. Beekeeping Your First 3 Years no longer in publication. But again, it was a national magazine and it was easy to get published. As far as the first 5 specialties, the honey and the things, beeswax, if you look up the word lady Virginia Webb, and then it's World's Best Honey. She has a series of excellent videos on how to win in honey competitions. This lady is a world-class judge, and she'll walk you step by step on how to make bulk wax or how to make to sort through honey to get a winning entry. I watched those as I was getting ready for my master craftsman level subspecialties. And I started watching her videos, and they're easy to follow, very good videos to watch. Again, Virginia Webb, or World's Best Honey, is her website, her channel. Highly recommend it. I actually met her in person. She's just as sweet and knowledgeable as she can be. All right, so again, those were the first 5, and then I talked about publishing an article in a beekeeping publication. So the second one, it's easy to do without ever entering the honey competitions, it says certification to administer life-saving treatment for allergic reactions to insect stings. That's a $35 as of today, it's a $35 online course through the American Red Cross. If you look up American Red Cross, how to administer an epinephrine pen or how to use an epinephrine pen, I think it takes about an hour to complete the course. You download a certificate, and that meets the requirement for that specialty. The third easiest one to do. So I talked about publishing an article, doing the American Red Cross EpiPen course. The third one is attendance at major beekeeping meetings or conferences. The requirement for the North Carolina State Beekeeper Association subspecialty for that is 3 conferences. So you can attend the North Carolina State Beekeeper Association spring, the North Carolina Beekeeper Association's fall meeting, and then go to another state. Go to South Carolinas or go to Virginia's, somebody's nearby. Or if you go to the Eastern Apiculture Society's EAS conference, that will also count. Again, it can be done over several years, or in my case, I knocked it out in 1 year. I did the spring and summer in North Carolina the year that they had it, and then I went to Virginia 2 weeks later and did theirs and knocked that specialty out in 1 year. And you'll learn a lot. Not only is it, you're not doing these things just to get the requirements. The whole purpose of the subspecialties is to round out your beekeeping knowledge. So don't go into these things that I'm just getting a ribbon to meet the requirements. No, don't do that. You got the wrong attitude. Go into it with the attitude is, I'm going to do this to meet this specialty requirement, but I'm going to round out my knowledge in that subspecialty. That's why it's listed as a subspecialty. So again, go into it with an open mind of wanting to learn something. That's the purpose of the specialties. So again, when you go to these various conferences, you're going to learn a lot because you're going to be exposed to various speakers at national level that people either write in our books. They're going to be the speakers at these things. The fourth one that's easy to do is conducting a program at a statewide or major beekeeping meeting. So if you contact the North Carolina State Beekeeper Association's leadership, go to the website, look up leadership, and then shoot them an email saying, hey, I'm going through the Master Beekeeping program. I want to teach at one of your conferences, the spring or the fall, and then tell them the topic that you might be interested in teaching. For example, to meet that specialty for my master level, I propose that I teach beekeeping equipment for new beekeepers, and they accepted it. And so you had all these, the year I did it, you had all these major beekeeper speakers, and then you had all these little side conferences, little seminars. After the major beekeeper speaker had his portion or her portion of the speaking engagement, they would break out into these workshops, and that's what I did. I became a speaker at one of these workshops during the conference and taught how about beekeeping equipment. Very easy, knocked out that requirement, super easy. The next one's easy to do. Pesticide usage expertise. That's requirement number 14 as it's listed currently. So in order to do that, again, in North Carolina, you go to the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and if you look up pesticide applicator exam, it'll take you to the website, and then from there you look at when the exams are administered and where they're being taught. Again, pre-COVID, they would have, the only one you need to have is the lowest level one that they have, which is the pesticide applicator to meet that requirement. So it's all it is a 2-day program, and you go, the first day is to teaching you the course, and then the second day is you take the exam, the pesticide applicator exam. If you don't want to attend the course, you can actually order the material, pesticide applicator manual, study at your own leisure, and then show up on test day and take the exam and meet the requirement for that way. I simply went to, because I wanted to learn, I read the book, I ordered the book in advance, read the book in advance, and then I went to the 1-day course, and then the next day took the exam. Again, it was in a different county. I spent the night in a hotel, studied up for the exam after they showed me exactly what was probably going to be on the exam, even though it wasn't the examiner teaching it, but it's somebody that is familiar with the process. They'll walk you through what to expect. And again, I learned about pesticide application. I found out it's not for me. But again, it gives me a good appreciation of all those pesticide applicators that are out there. And it also helps set you up for that specialty, and also helps set you up for that practical exam. That's part of the Journeyman and Master practical exams that we talked about earlier. Again, easy requirement to knock out in 1 year in that first year that you do this. And then lastly, the fifth one, the sixth one is requirement number 19, volunteer hours at the North Carolina Zoo's Honeybee Habitat exhibit. Again, I talked about this briefly earlier. If you do 50 hours or more in a single year, over 40 hours over 2 years, if I remember right, and you gotta look at the requirements and it'll tell you. It's super easy. You coordinate with the zoo volunteer coordinator. You have to attend their volunteer training. It's only taught once a year, so make sure you do it in time. Again, it's typically done in about February or March. So you volunteer from there. Go through that training, and then you do your 40 hours. In this case, I ended up doing I took a week's leave and knocked it all out in 1 week, and then I ended up going later on when I was on vacation in the later part of the year to knock out the other 10 hours that I needed for the thing. And I actually volunteered more at the zoo because it's actually a fun project to do. You learn by teaching. So you get all these people who are coming in, they're just visiting the zoo, and you teach them about the exciting world of honeybees and beekeeping, and you'll learn about that as you teach them. You'll become more and more refreshed of the topics yourself, and it's actually fun to do. So again, easy requirement to knock out. So that's basically how to get through those 6 requirements without ever having to do the hunting competitions. But if you want to do the hunting competitions, I'll talk about looking up Virginia Webb's videos. Again, excellent series. So then next question is how do you get from here to there? So if you go, again, you go to the Beekeepers Associations and you see the requirements, they're going to list various books. So I highly encourage you to download that list, order the books, and then study those books. They're going to, this year I've noticed when they must have modified it in the last couple of years, they've told different books at different levels. So they've actually broken it down by certified, journeyman, and higher. So for example, they're going to tell you if the journeyman level, or excuse me, the certified level, Beekeeping for Dummies, first lessons in beekeeping, Backyard Beekeeper by Kim Flotten. Those are all the three that they recommend for certified. I highly recommend the very first book you read though is the Hive and Honeybee. They don't have it listed until the master level, but I guarantee you that everything that's in this book will be on all three exams, certified, journeyman, and master beekeeper level. The Hive and the Honeybee, the easiest place to get it is through Dadent itself and get that. Again, and then they're going to tell you about the anatomy of the honeybee for the journeyman level. It's also a little bit of that in the Hive and Honeybee, but it's pretty in depth. You probably want to scan through this book. Again, you're looking for scientific terminology, and then again, all things anatomy and physiology about the honeybee. Beekeeper's Handbook by Diana Samataro. Again, I butchered her name. Again, another reference book. Again, go through it and read it. And then they're also going to want to talk about the honeybee biology. Read this. So the two books I mostly used for when I studied my exam were the Honeybee Biology and Beekeeping by Dewey Karen, and then the Hive and the Honeybee are my two books. I read these books from front to back at least once, and I read certain chapters, anatomy and physiology, anything dealing with pollination, anything dealing with management. I read those chapters a couple times to help me get through that portion. And then again, the anatomy and physiology of the honeybee by R.A. Snodgrass. You can also download this from the U.S. government's website. It's for the 1910 version, and you'll find all these illustrations that are in here on the honeybee. They're used in our beekeeping books because they're not copyrighted anymore. If you're a hard copy book person like me, you go on Amazon. This is about $20 on Amazon, if I remember correctly, and you just order it from them, and then you've got a hard copy instead of the PDF version. They're also going to want you, the Master Beekeeping Program is going to talk about the ABC and XYZ of bee culture. It's a good book to read through. I didn't read the whole thing, but again, there's a lot of questions that come out of this, but most of your questions are going to come out of the Hive and the Honeybee, and Karen's Honeybee and Biology, and then again, anatomy and physiology. They're also going to talk about the biology of the honeybee as one of your references. Again, I read this from front to back. Again, you're going to need to know, as part of your Master Beekeeping exam, you're going to need to know how to calculate the different days at each stage of the honeybee life cycle. For example, you need to know how long it's an egg, how long it's a larvae, how long it's a pupae, and then when it will emerge as an adult for all the different bees, the queen, the worker, and the drone. Again, and so you will have to know how to calculate it. And then they'll list other books such as Wildflowers of North Carolina. So again, this is all in the pollination series. You have to know about the different types of trees, or it's self-pollination or cross-pollination. All those various pollination terms you need to know. You'll need to know certain types of plants, whether they're wind pollinated or whether they're insect pollinated, and which types of bees are more suited for those types of plants. For example, tomatoes typically pollinated by bumblebees as opposed to the honeybee because it requires buzz pollination. You'll have to know that term. Then you'll have to, part of the Master Beekeeping Program exam, you're going to have to be able to calculate the direction of when a honeybee, you have to know the various honeybee dances, the waggle dance, round dance, and all those dances, and you'll have to be able to calculate the direction from the hive to the source, and there'll be an illustration or a word problem for you to figure out, and you'll have to say what the direction to the source is, southeast or northwest or whatever it is. You'll have to be able to calculate that. So a good resource for that is the Honeybee Democracy by Thomas Seeley. They talk about this in the other books, and this will explain to you about how to calculate that. If you do a simple Google search on how to calculate the direction and distance from a hive to a source, you can also find the answers to that on the web as well. But again, this is a really good book as well. All right, so the other thing you can do is if you have a chance to attend study groups, like some of the chapters in North Carolina that I know have study groups to help their beekeepers at their chapter level get through the Journeyman and the Master exam. So if you have that opportunity, I highly encourage you to do that as well and test each other as you go through and help each other study for the exam. The next point I will make out is you want to take your Master exam as fast and as soon as you can after you take your Journeyman. So figure out what the requirements are and then take that as fast as you can, because all that information that you studied months for the Journeyman will be fresh on your head. When I did it, there weren't any time limits afterwards, so I was able to take it at the next conference after I already met my Journeyman level certificate and had it in my hand. I was able to take my next. I think now there's actually a time period between tests. So figure out go on the website, find out what the current rules are, and then apply those. But my point is, as soon as you are eligible, you should go take that Master exam after you've taken your Journeyman exam, because you will have studied for months for your Journeyman exam, and all that stuff's in your head still, all those scientific terminologies, all the diseases, scientific names, all the treatments for the various diseases and the various pests, and all the treatments and management techniques against the various pests. All that will be fresh in your head, so take that exam as fast as you can, so that way you don't forget that stuff. Let's see. And then, like I said, the other thing that will help you through this process is when you do your public service requirements, teach. That will also help you retain this stuff. If the requirement is to wait a year after you've taken your Journeyman to take the Master, go teach a bee school. Teach at these various public schools as part of your service requirements, because as you teach, you have to go and do research just to refresh yourself, so that nobody sharpshoots and asks you a question you don't know the answer to. Make sure you go in prepared to teach a class. That will help you retain that knowledge over the long period when you get ready to take your last exam, your next level exam. And one of the other, I keep going, forgetting to mention it, one of the other specialties that's easy to obtain in the Master Beekeeping specialties, remember there's 19 of them, is attendance at various workshops. Forget the title of it. I don't have it handy. I don't have my notes handy. I wrote it down. But anyhow, if you take the North Carolina's Born and Bred Queen Rearing Workshop, and they have various covers every year, they make this, that will count as one of those 19 specialties. Again, at the Master Beekeeper, you only need 6, and then for the Master Craftsman, you need an additional 7. Again, if you go to the Born and Bred Queen Rearing Workshop, it will qualify for one of those specialties. Again, it tells you exactly which specialty it is, because it specifically lists the Born and Bred program. And again, it's a very easy course. I think it's only a couple days long, if I remember right. I can't remember how long it is. But you will learn so much on how to do queen rearing through the way the North Carolina State Beekeeper Association recommends it. And it's really easy doing. It's actually a fun course. I actually have some photos of where I was teaching a mentee a couple of years ago, a student a couple of years ago, where we did that. I took what I learned during the workshop, and we raised a couple frames of queens. It's super easy by following the steps that was in that program, and it's super easy. I got to teach a student. I got to do it myself as part of that process. So it helped me retain the knowledge that I'd learned 2 years earlier in a workshop. So for the last, whatever this video has been going on now, I've talked about what it is to become a master beekeeper. You're not all-knowing, but what it does do, it gives you a sense of what's scientific-based and what is opinion-based, what you're seeing on the websites, as there's a lot of crap on the internet. So it helps you, going through the Master Beekeeping program, helps you sort through that and figure out what is scientific-based and what is simply opinion-based. It will also give you a well-rounded knowledge on the various topics. For example, it may give you a well-rounded knowledge on honey extraction or various honey processing, or the various management techniques to apply. So again, it helps you sort through what's fact, scientific-based, and what is simply opinion. And just because it works for one person doesn't mean it works for somebody else. But again, it helps you work through that process and figure out what works for you, and then how you can give advice to a young beekeeper on how to solve a problem. Again, what's science-based and what's opinion-based. And whenever I talk to a beekeeper that asks me a question, I'm very careful to explain to them what's science-based on my opinions that I'm giving them, or what's simply my opinion and based on my experiences. And when you do that, you'll find your credibility in the beekeeping world or the beekeeping community goes up. So if you're just one of these people that shoots off with an opinion just to give an answer, your public perception is going to be pretty low. But if you go into things and ask or answer questions based on science, or if you can point a beekeeper to a known source, such as a government website or educational website, such as a university or college, your credibility in the beekeeping world will be a lot higher than somebody that's just making stuff up as they go, just on their own experiences. So now I babbled a lot for the last, whatever this video has been going on. So thank you for your time, and good luck on your beekeeping journey, your beekeeping journey. And I hope I see you in the master beekeeping realm. So thank you for your time. Enjoy.